Hi all, thank you for coming. My name is Julia. I'm a postdoc with Dr. Guillaume Benad at the University of Toulouse. And today I'm going to present to you some of our results on the evolution of a fruit type in Oleaceae. So today we see a big diversity in fruits. And here I'm not including the domesticated ones, but in fruits we see different shapes, colors, sizes, number of seeds, textures. You think of a trait and it's going to be super diverse. Now, even though we see a lot of diversity, there is a tendency, there's an agreement that fruits tend to evolve towards fleshiness. And this is most likely due to the diversification of birds and mammals and their roles as a disperser of seeds, meaning that the pressure to keep developing and maintaining lineages with fleshy fruits would carry on given those two main dispersers. Now, once you think about this tendency to evolve towards fleshiness and all the possible endpoints, all the possible fleshy fruits here, you might wonder that there could be different ways to arrive at a fleshy fruit. And especially that when you think about the dry fruits, it might mean that you not only have many endpoints, you also have many starting points. So maybe you also have multiple paths connecting those two states. So thinking about these questions, we wanted to test a hypothesis on that case, and specifically we decided to look into the proposition that was presented by Ingrid Roth in her Fruits of Angiosperms book. Ingrid, after extensive studies of fruit anatomy, she came to propose that fruits tend to evolve from a dry dehiscent state, so dehiscent means that the fruits open, towards a fleshy indehiscent state. And more specifically, this evolution will go through an intermediate state that would be a dry indehiscent one. In other words, she was basically saying that to go from a dry to a fleshy fruit, you first see a change in dehiscence and then a change in fleshiness. So to test that, we decided to use the Oleaceae family. So Oleaceae is a group that has about 700 species distributed in all continents. It includes several economically important species like the olives, ornamental ones like jasmines and lilacs, and ash trees that are used for tea. When it comes to fruits, it has all possible combinations when you consider fleshiness and dehiscence. So fleshy indehiscent fruits like berries and drupes. It does have one species that has a fleshy dehiscent fruit. And here in the picture, we can see that the fruit, one of the fruits is open. When it comes to dry fruits, has several types of indehiscent dry fruits, Semerus schizocarp's dry drupes, these ones that contrast to the regular fleshy drupes. And lastly, it has the dry dehiscent fruits, so which would be capsules, and here I have two pictures as examples. To plot this in the phylogeny, so you have a sense how they're distributed between the different taxa. Here's how things are going to look like. So the tips in this phylogeny are genera, except for the top one, which is a tribe, so it has multiple genera in it. Just so you have a sense of how big these are, Jasminum is the largest genus in the family, and Oleaceae and all the genera inside of it sum up to a little over 360 species. When it comes to the fruits, we have 4 groups with fleshy fruits and everybody else with dry fruits. When it comes to dehiscence, we have 5 groups that are dehiscent and the rest is indehiscent. As of now, in the tree, you already have 3 out of the 4 possible combinations that as we see here at the top. The 4th combination will be the ligustrum I mentioned. Another important exception are the dry drupes of Neuronia that contrasts with the fleshy drupes of all other genera in the Oleaceae. So to test that hypothesis, that proposition, what we used was a model of correlated evolution where all possible combinations of states between the two characters are allowed, and then transitions between them are then estimated. So what we wanted to do is estimate the full model, see how those transitions look like, and compare it to two hypotheses. So we translated the proposition into a reversible path hypothesis. So going between dry dehiscent and fleshy dehiscent can happen on and backwards. And a more strict one where the directionality is only one. You can only go towards fleshy indehiscent. The methods were, so we used two methods. First, to actually test that the traits were evolving in a correlated fashion, and for that we used the pairwise comparison in Mesquite. And then to actually test the different models, contrast them, we used Bayes traits. So here's how the results look. So for each model, the thickness of the arrows represent transitions that happen more frequently. So if they're thicker, more frequent. And I am also showing you, just for reference, the likelihood of each of them. So for the full model, the two biggest arrows point to fleshy indehiscent, saying that indeed the path would be first a change in dehiscence and then towards fleshy. But we also have many transitions between the two fleshy combinations here, most likely because this one is very rare, so the model was trying to explain the rarity by allowing many transitions towards it, but many more away from it. Looking at the hypothesis, so the contrasting hypothesis, so for the reversible path, already the likelihood is better than the full model. We still see the directionality, but we have reversals here towards the dry indehiscent state, which contrasts to hypothesis 2, that we have a very strong directionality towards fleshy indehiscent, but the fact that this transition backwards was not allowed made it a model that was worse than this one. And in the end, the hypothesis 1 is the best model for the data that we have. Not only that, it also says that the ancestral state in the family is a dry dehiscent state. So to contextualize things a little bit, I compared what happened, what we found for Oleaceae, to another very large clade of plants, campanulidés, and this was a fantastic data set that was published in 2013, and we basically find the same directionality, very strongly towards fleshy indehiscence, meaning that what we're finding in Oleaceae is most likely what's happening in other plants as well, plant groups as well. Lastly, to bring back the proposition that Roth had, and now translating the arrow thickness to show the results we saw for Oleaceae, I wanted to bring two things that could maybe help us understand why we see such a strong directionality and only reversal towards one of the states. So the first thing to consider is that the complexity of the pericarp is much smaller in a fleshy fruit when you compare to a dry one. To get to a fruit that needs to open to release the seeds, you need several things, some of them being dehiscent zones, cell layers that are lignified, and sometimes specialized vasculature, between other things. So going from a very complex pericarp to now a simplified one is easier than going all the way back. Another thing to consider is that what we saw in Oleaceae and also in campanulidés, and probably that's probably the case in other groups, is that the intermediate state here is already doing a pretty good job when it comes to being a dry fruit. So what we found was that for Oleaceae, all of the dry indehiscent fruits were single-seeded, meaning that a step that would take you from a single-seeded fruit now to that is indehiscent to a dehiscent one wouldn't make sense, since that all of your seeds are already individually wrapped. There is no need now to open a fruit to disperse the seeds. But anatomy is not the only constraint when it comes to the evolution of fruits. And as part of our project, we're also trying to include things like environment and dispersers. With that, I would like to thank all my collaborators, all the institutions and agencies that made this work possible, and finally, all the organizers that made this conference happen. Thank you.